The sun set in a blaze of crimson behind the savannah, bathing the ancient village of Kiwanda in gold and purple shadows. At the edge of the village, a colossal baobab tree, its trunk scarred by time, its branches reaching like silent sentinels, towered over all. The elders called it the Whispering Baobab. They said its roots touched forgotten worlds, and on certain nights, secrets would drift from its hollow. On this night, the wind turned strange. A young girl, Io, curious and restless, crept toward the tree, guided by the rustling of its leaves. At its base, she heard her name, soft, coaxing, carried on the air like a song. She pressed her ear to the trunk. Whispers danced through the wood, twisting into ancient tongues, then clear words. Awaken the legends. Restore the broken circle. Io stumbled back, heart pounding. The earth trembled beneath her feet. The baobab's bark glowed with faint markings, shapes of animals, masked figures, warriors, and storytellers, moving as if alive. Shadows shifted at the tree's roots, and for a moment, Io saw a pair of golden eyes peering from the darkness. Suddenly, a gust scattered the dust and the whispers faded. Ao stood breathless, unsure if she was awake or dreaming. But the legend had chosen her. She was sure of it. From that moment, nothing in Kiwanda would ever be the same. The first secret had awakened, and the past would not rest quietly. That night, as the village settled into uneasy sleep, Ao lay awake in her hut, replaying the whispers in her mind. The baobab's call echoed beneath her ribs. Outside, the air was thick and restless, the usual chorus of night sounds replaced by a low hum. A voice too old to be human, too urgent to ignore. Compelled by a force she couldn't name, Io wrapped herself in her mother's old shawl and slipped outside. The path to the baobab was eerily clear, the grass bending as if to usher her onward. The moonlight turned the trunk silver, revealing the shifting carvings even brighter than before. She pressed her palm to the tree. The ground rumbled. Shadows gathered in the hollow, swirling until they formed the silhouette of an ancient storyteller. Tall, robed in leaves, their face hidden behind a carved wooden mask. The figure's voice was 100 voices at once, some gentle, some thunderous, all urgent. Io, child of two worlds, the time is short. Forgotten legends sleep, but darkness grows in their absence. You must gather the lost tales and awaken the guardians. Only then can the village survive what is coming. Before Io could speak, the mask split open, revealing fleeting images. A great serpent in the river, a warrior with eyes like fire, a woman who sang to the stars. The visions left her breathless, and as she staggered back, the storyteller dissolved into mist. At the tree's roots, a small totem had appeared, carved with the image of a lion, its eyes glinting. Ao clutched it, heart racing. The journey had truly begun, and already she sensed unseen eyes watching from the dark. The following morning, Ao awoke with the lion totem clutched in her hand and the memory of the masked spirit burning in her mind. She slipped it into her pouch and hurried to the baobab tree, half afraid it would be gone. But the tree stood, majestic and watchful, its carvings now dim in the daylight. The village, meanwhile, felt different. Hushed, uneasy. Elders gathered in worried clusters, whispering about dreams of lost ancestors and strange omens. The air crackled with something unspoken. Ao watched as her friend Jabari, the son of the chief, argued with his father about the growing sense of dread. At midday, a chill swept through Kiwanda. Clouds gathered, turning the sky to iron. Birds fell silent. Suddenly, a shout echoed from the outskirts. A herd of cattle stampeded in terror, fleeing from something unseen in the grass. The villagers scrambled to catch them, but as Ao ran to help, the lion totem in her pouch grew hot. At the baobab, shadows lengthened impossibly, curling across the ground. As Io arrived, the wind howled and the markings on the tree shimmered again. This time, 3 shadowy figures appeared at her side. A woman with stars in her hair, a young boy with a serpent coiled around his wrist, and a towering hunter with fire in his eyes. The woman spoke, her voice like distant thunder. The legends gather, but so do the forgotten dangers. You must find our stories, or the darkness beneath the tree will consume all. Io stared, heart hammering, as the sky darkened and the baobab's roots seemed to tremble with warning. Kiwanda was on the brink, and only the forgotten tales could save it. As night fell, thunder rumbled above Kiwanda, and villagers hurried indoors, whispering prayers against restless spirits. But Io could not rest. The lion totem pulsed with heat, guiding her through the village toward the river's edge. The baobab's branches pointed her way, stark against flashes of lightning. The river, usually gentle, churned with an unnatural current. Ao crouched by the water's edge, heart pounding. Mist rose from the riverbank, swirling into the form of the boy she'd seen before, the one with the serpent coiled around his arm. His eyes glimmered, and his voice was both young and ancient. I am Akinye, keeper of the river's memory. A shadow sleeps in these waters, and its hunger grows. As he spoke, the serpent lifted its head, eyes glowing gold. The water behind them shimmered, revealing ghostly images. Fishermen lost to the depths, a great serpent winding through forgotten villages, an artifact gleaming beneath the waves. Ikine handed Ayo a small, scaled stone. You must return this to the river's heart to awaken its guardian spirit. If you fail, darkness will rise, and the legends will drown. Ayo stared at the stone, feeling the ancient power thrumming within. Suddenly, the serpent hissed, and Ikene vanished, swept away by a surge of wind. The river roared, sending icy spray over Ayo, who stumbled back but held tight to the stone. Above her, the baobab's branches shook wildly, as if urging her to hurry. The village lamps flickered in the distance. The storm was only beginning, and Ayo knew she was racing against something far older and far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. Dawn broke over Kiwanda, the storm leaving the land washed and trembling. Ayo awoke, the scaled stone cool and heavy in her palm. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the clouds, she noticed fresh tracks leading from the river back toward the baobab. Massive footprints, clawed and deep, far too large for any animal she knew. Compelled by a sense of urgency, Ayo followed the trail. It led her through the whispering grass to the ancient tree. There, waiting in the morning mist, stood the hunter from her vision. A towering figure draped in fur and feathers, a necklace of animal teeth gleaming around his neck. His eyes burned like embers as he regarded her, spear planted in the earth. I am Mosi, guardian of the wild hunt. His voice rumbled, echoing with a strength beyond the living. If the circle is to be restored, the courage of the heart must be tested. Darkness stalks the legends. Do you have the bravery to face it? Ayo met his gaze, her fear warring with resolve. Mosi pointed to the shadow beneath the baobab, where the earth itself seemed to breathe. Within the roots, a beast is stirring, one that feeds on forgotten stories. Bring forth the lost tale of the lion and the moon, and you may awaken a guardian to protect your people. With trembling hands, Ayo touched the trunk. The bark pulsed under her fingers, and a vision flashed before her. A lioness bathed in silver light, standing atop the baobab, her roar echoing through time. When the vision faded, Mosi nodded in approval and faded into mist. Ayo collapsed to her knees, heart pounding. She knew now. To save her village, she must gather and tell the stories before they were devoured by the encroaching dark. Exhausted, Ayo returned to the village as the sun climbed higher. She passed groups of villagers arguing anxiously, some blaming the strange weather on old curses, others whispering about spirits in the fields. In the square, her friend Jabari tried to calm them, but fear was winning. Drawn by a haunting melody, Ayo found herself at the abandoned storyteller's hut on the village's edge. The air inside was cool and dust-laden, filled with old gourds, carved drums, and faded masks. In the corner sat a woman with hair threaded with silver beads, her face familiar from the baobab's vision. The woman sang a song older than memory, her voice rising and falling like the wind through the trees. As Ayo listened, the world seemed to change. The hut walls faded, revealing a night sky full of stars. The woman's form shimmered, becoming almost translucent, her song weaving shapes of dancers, animals, and battles into the air. Ayo, the woman said, I am Zuri, the one who remembers. Every legend has a song. Find the lost verses, and you'll bind the story's power to you. The darkness steals what is forgotten. The song is your shield. Zuri handed Ayo an old drum carved with constellations. Let your heart remember the rhythms of the past, and they will answer your call. Suddenly, a dark shadow slithered under the door, chilling the air. Zuri's song faltered and her image began to fade. Beware the silencer, she whispered. He feeds on forgotten songs. If you lose the melody, the circle will break. Ayo clutched the drum, her heart beating in time. The challenge was growing, and the shadows hunting her were closer than ever. As Ayo left Zuri's hut clutching the star-carved drum, she felt the air grow colder. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, twisting across the village paths. Villagers clustered around the baobab tree, murmuring in confusion. The sky was a bruised purple, heavy with tension. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the uneasy quiet. Jabari raced to Ayo's side, his eyes wild with fear. The cattle are gone! Something tore through the pens and left no tracks. And the elders, one by one, they're falling into a deep, unnatural sleep. Ayo's heart pounded as she realized the darkness that fed on forgotten tales was here, hunting in the open. The silencer, the shadow she'd glimpsed in Zuri's hut, moved among them, stealing memories and hope. In the chaos, elders began to forget their own names, stories slipping away mid-sentence, their faces blank with terror. Ayo beat the drum with trembling hands, calling to the guardians in desperation. The ground trembled. Ghostly shapes flickered at the baobab's roots, the lioness, the serpent, the hunter, all flickering in and out of sight as if struggling to hold on to existence. Keep the stories alive. Zuri's voice echoed from afar, thin and fading. But the silencer grew bolder, its shadow reaching for the villagers, snuffing out the light in their eyes. Ayo made a desperate vow. She would not let Kiwanda's stories die. Even as the circle of legends frayed and the village began to crumble into forgetfulness, she clung to her drum, the lion totem, and the scaled stone. She would gather every tale and awaken every guardian, before all was lost to silence. Night returned heavy and breathless. While most of the village huddled in their homes, Ayo sat beneath the baobab, staring at its roots pulsing with dim light. Jabari stood watch beside her, eyes darting at every movement in the darkness. The ghostly figures reappeared, lioness, serpent, hunter, flickering with desperation. The silencer grows stronger, whispered Zuri's voice, echoing through the branches. Its hunger is endless below. Suddenly, a fissure opened between the baobab's roots, revealing a stone staircase spiraling down into the earth. The air that rose from the opening was cold and stale, heavy with ancient secrets and fear. Ayo, clutching her totem, drum, and scaled stone, looked at Jabari. He nodded silently, and together they descended into the heart of the tree. The tunnel was lit by veins of glowing roots, casting ghostly patterns on the walls. At every turn, they passed murals depicting legends, some vibrant, some nearly erased. Their footsteps stirred dust and memories. Halfway down, the silencer's presence thickened. Shadows flickered along the walls, and muffled voices faded away as they approached. Jabari faltered, his face blanking in confusion, forgetting even his own name for a moment before Ayo gripped his hand and began to drum softly. The echoes chased away the darkness, restoring his memory for a breath. At the tunnel's end, they reached a cavernous chamber lined with totems and relics. In the center, a swirling vortex of shadow hunched, feeding on the fading images of Kiwanda's legends. Every forgotten story, every lost name, spun in its grasp. Ayo's fear was immense, but she steadied her voice. We're not leaving until the circle is whole. And so the true battle began, not just for the past, but for the future of every legend. Inside the cavern, the air was thick with dread. Ayo and Jabari edged closer to the swirling shadow vortex, its center alive with twisting faces, fragments of stories being consumed. The further they stepped, the heavier the silence became. Even their footsteps seemed swallowed by the darkness. Suddenly, the silencer emerged from the vortex, no longer just a shadow, but a figure cloaked in darkness with hollow, hungry eyes. Its hands reached for the children, every touch making the murals on the walls fade and crack. Jabari staggered, a lost legend's name slipping from his memory. The silencer grew bolder, feeding on their fear. Ayo's heart raced as she remembered Zuri's warning. The song is your shield. With trembling hands, she struck the drum and chanted the fragments of legends she still remembered. The lion's courage, the serpent's wisdom, The hunter's vow. Each beat sent a pulse of light into the shadow, pushing the silencer back but only barely. The vortex howled in anger, lashing out with tendrils of darkness. Jabari nearly vanished into its grip, but Ayo grabbed his arm, her drum echoing with a rhythm older than time. The murals flickered back to life, showing the lioness leaping across stars and the serpent circling the sun. For a moment, the silencer faltered, and the shadows retreated. But not for long. The children knew this was only the first battle. Their memories and voices were the last defense against the devouring dark. Ayo drew a deep breath, drum poised, and locked eyes with Jabari. Together, they would fight for every forgotten tale. The fate of Kiwanda's stories and its future hung in the balance. The battle raged inside the cavern. The silencer's shrieks echoed off the stone as Ayo's drumbeat sent ripples of light across the floor. Jabari, still fighting the haze of forgetfulness, managed to shout an old proverb his grandmother once taught him. The words shimmered in the air, strengthening the drum's song. But the vortex pressed closer, pulling at Ayo's memories. She saw flashes of her own past, her mother's smile, Zuri's lullabies, stories told by moonlight, each threatened by the silencer's greedy hands. With a surge of desperation, Ayo remembered the vision Mosey had shown her, the lioness atop the baobab, roaring to the moon. She lifted the lion totem and chanted the old tale of courage, of how the lioness once fought the darkness to protect her cubs. As the words filled the air, the totem glowed hot in her palm. The ghostly form of the lioness burst from the totem, leaping into the vortex with a thunderous roar. The vortex recoiled, shadows scattering. Murals on the walls blazed with fresh color. Images of lions, the moon, and brave children filled every inch. The silencer wailed, shrinking back from the light and song. Jabari's eyes cleared, and memory flooded back into him. Exhausted but defiant, Ayo struck the final beat on the drum. "Your time is over," she declared. "Kiwanda's stories belong to us." The silencer, battered and shrinking, retreated deep into the shadows, vanishing at last. The cavern grew quiet. Ayo and Jabari collapsed, surrounded by the warm glow of restored legends. But they both knew the circle was not fully mended yet. The journey was not over. Above them, the baobab's roots hummed with new energy. The next challenge was waiting. In the golden aftermath of battle, the shadows in the cavern retreated, leaving behind a pulsing silence. Ayo, breathless and spent, watched as the spirit lioness prowled the mural walls, her form illuminating lost figures and faded patterns. One by one, the legends, hunter, serpent, starlit singer, reappeared, drawn back into their rightful places by the lioness's touch. Jabari slumped to the floor, overwhelmed with relief as the burden of forgetfulness lifted. Around them, the ancient murals blazed with color, each legend now vibrant and whole. For the first time, the chamber felt warm, a heartbeat of hope and memory rising from its depths. Ayo raised the drum, beating out the song Zuri had taught her. The air shimmered with magic as the voices of ancestors joined in chorus. The silencer's shadow still lingered at the chamber's farthest edge, shrunken and powerless, unable to cross the circle of light and song. Above, through cracks in the ceiling, roots from the baobab glowed like veins of fire. Warm air rushed up the stairwell as if the entire village was breathing again. Ayo and Jabari ascended, their steps guided by the stories that now blazed within them. Emerging beneath the moon, they found the villagers stirring awake, faces alight with recognition and joy. Elders began to retell the tales once lost. Children sang the songs of guardians, and Kiwanda pulsed with new life. For the first time in generations, the circle of stories was whole. But Ayo knew that legends need guardians, and she, the keeper of the baobab's whispers, would answer the call whenever darkness threatened the village's memory. Ayo and Jabari climbed out of the underground chamber, blinking as they emerged beneath the ancient baobab under a starlit sky. The village, once plagued by silence and dread, now buzzed with renewed energy. Elders told stories with fire in their voices. Children played games inspired by newly remembered legends, and the air itself seemed alive with laughter. But the baobab was not yet done with Ayo. As she rested against the trunk, the spirit lioness circled her once more, her golden form shimmering in the moonlight. You have restored the stories, but they must be shared beyond Kiwanda, the lioness intoned. The world forgets too easily. Carry the circle onward. Suddenly, the baobab's hollow opened, revealing a chamber lined with scrolls and carved masks. The ancestors' voices echoed within, urging Ayo and Jabari inside. They stepped through roots and shadow, discovering tales from distant lands, heroes and guardians, singers and warriors, legends both familiar and strange. Jabari lifted a mask, feeling the power of a long-lost hero flow through him. Ayo read from a scroll, her words sending sparks of light into the air. The baobab's trunk pulsed with magic, the carvings spreading and glowing, reaching to the farthest branches. With every new story found, the world outside changed. Rivers brightened, crops flourished, animals danced in the moonlight. But deep within the tree, a final warning echoed. Legends are only safe when remembered. Keep the stories alive, or the silence will return. Io nodded, heart filled with purpose. She and Jabari gathered the scrolls, determined to become the village's new storytellers. The Whispering Baobab would guide them, but it was up to the children to keep the circle unbroken. As dawn broke, golden light filtered through the baobab branches. Ayo and Jabari emerged from the tree, arms full of glowing scrolls and ancient masks. The entire village, sensing something extraordinary, gathered around the base of the baobab. Elders, children, mothers, and hunters alike. The spirit lioness watched from the shadows, her golden eyes calm and proud. Ayo, heart pounding, unrolled the first scroll. Jabari donned a mask, his voice shifting as he became the old river guardian. The children sat wide-eyed. Elders leaned forward, and the air thrummed with anticipation. Ayo's words painted vivid scenes of the lioness who roared back the darkness, the serpent who taught wisdom, the starlit singer who wove dreams, and the hunter who guarded the wild places. Jabari leapt and danced, the mask bringing each spirit to life. The baobab's bark glimmered, the carvings alive with the energy of remembered legend. As the story finished, a gentle breeze swept through the village, carrying the echoes of ancient songs. The elders nodded, finally at peace. The children begged for more, their laughter ringing out in celebration. The villagers embraced Ayo and Jabari, honoring them as the new keepers of the circle. The spirit lioness disappeared into the roots, her task complete. For now. But Ayo understood her true duty, to share these stories far beyond Kiwanda's borders, to keep the magic alive for all who needed hope. With each tale told, the baobab would whisper again, and no shadow could ever silence the legends as long as there was a voice to remember. As days passed, the village of Kiwanda transformed. Every evening, the people gathered beneath the vast arms of the baobab. The stories grew richer and bolder, with children creating new legends, some about animals that spoke in riddles, others about magical rivers or heroic ancestors who saved the moon. Ayo and Jabari became beloved figures, teaching the youngest to drum, dance, and act out the tales. The elders, their wisdom rekindled, wove forgotten proverbs into new songs. Even travelers from distant villages arrived, drawn by the laughter and light that now flowed from the baobab's heart. One afternoon, as Ayo led the children in crafting painted masks, the spirit lioness appeared in a fleeting golden vision. "The circle of stories is eternal as long as you plant new seeds," she whispered. The tree's roots trembled, and dozens of saplings sprung up around the great baobab, each glowing with faint, magical light. Jabari grinned, donning a new mask shaped like a laughing hyena. "One day, these saplings will hold their own legends," he declared, "and the circle will never break." The villagers cheered, and Ayo felt a wave of pride and peace. The baobab's whispers were now everywhere, in the wind, in the children's songs, and in every mask and drumbeat. The village had become a beacon of memory and imagination. Ayo knew the darkness would always try to return, but with every story told and every new legend born, Kiwanda's light would endure. The baobab would keep whispering, and there would always be children listening. A full moon rose above Kiwanda, bathing the village and the great baobab in silver light. The air shimmered with excitement as everyone prepared for the first masked festival, a celebration to honor the return of the legends and the planting of new stories. Children ran through the village in brightly painted animal masks, Lion, zebra, hyena, antelope. Drummers beat out a rhythm that echoed the heart of the baobab, while dancers, old and young, spun in swirling circles beneath its massive branches. The magical saplings glowed softly, their leaves whispering with every gust of wind. Ayo led the procession, wearing a mask shaped like the sun. Jabari wore a mask of the wise river serpent, twirling with energy. The elders, their faces painted in vibrant colors, told tales around small fires, their voices mingling with the music. At midnight, the spirit lioness appeared at the edge of the festival, her golden light flowing through the crowd. For a moment, every mask, every drum, every song seemed to shine with her power. She circled the tree, nodding her approval, then faded into the roots, leaving the villagers filled with hope and courage. As laughter echoed into the night, Ayo realized the festival would be their greatest weapon against forgetfulness, a living promise that the stories would never again be lost to darkness. The circle was not just unbroken, it was growing stronger with every drumbeat, every dance, and every whispering leaf. As the festival faded into memory, the village awoke to a gentle dawn. Ayo and Jabari packed satchels with painted masks, drums, and scrolls, standing at the edge of Kiwanda where the wide red road vanished into the savannah. Villagers gathered to send them off, gifts and blessings in hand. The spirit lioness appeared one last time, circling the children with a warm, golden embrace. "Carry our legends beyond the baobab," she said. "Let every village remember." Ayo hugged her mother tightly. Jabari promised the elders he'd share their wisdom with every stranger he met. As they stepped onto the path, the saplings around the baobab glowed softly as if nodding in approval. The children walked together into the morning light, shadows stretching before them. At every bend in the road, Ayo and Jabari stopped to drum, to sing, to tell a tale to anyone who would listen. Herders, traders, children by the river, elders beneath new baobabs. Behind them, Kiwanda's baobab stood proud and alive, its stories echoing out across the land. The legend keepers had become wanderers, and everywhere they went, stories sparked anew. Old songs found new voices, lost tales were remembered, and the silence that once haunted Kiwanda was forgotten. And so, the Whispering Baobab's magic stretched beyond the village, one storyteller's voice at a time.